Hello dear students, welcome to Bajirao IAS Academy Interview Guidance Program 2023. So in these sessions, as part of interview guidance program, we have been discussing the current issues which are relevant for the interview 2023. We all know that the UPSC has been conducting interviews for this year examination. So therefore the current issues which are very much in use, which are relevant, there's a probability that UPSC may ask those questions. So yesterday we have discussed about national security doctrine. So what is its significance for India? Why India requires a national security doctrine? Now today we will be discussing about the reservation that is being provided for women, 33% of the reservation provided for women in state legislature as well as the parliament. Now, reservation is a long pending issue. 73rd and 74th Amendment Act has been passed and it has provided women with 33% of the reservation. So however, women have been demanding 33% of the reservation in state legislature as well as parliament. However, this reservation has not been passed since several decades, particularly because women have very low representation. Just 9% of women in state legislature when you look at the all state legislature, and it is around 4.5% of the women in both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. So if you look at the data of women representation, India is lagging behind even compared to most of the South Asian countries like Sri Lanka, Bangladesh and Nepal. So therefore in this context, it is envisioned that providing reservation, the 33% of the reservation for women, will ensure that the political, social and economic empowerment of the women. So we can see a clear change at the grassroots level when women are being provided for 33% of the reservation. Now women actively taking part in the politics. So there's also data that women represented panchayats have better developmental plans, so they have a better framework, so they are involving more and more stakeholders in the developmental process. So therefore in this context, women reservation, women participation in politics is very important. Okay, so in this context, what is Women Reservation Act 2023? We need to understand the Women Reservation Act 2023. So the Constitutional Amendment Act, so please remember the Constitutional Amendment Act. So this is 106th Constitutional Amendment Act 2023. Okay, so this particular Constitutional Amendment Act has reserved 1/3 of all seats, that is 33% of all seats for women in Lok Sabha, state assemblies and state assembly of the capital territory of Delhi. Okay, so this includes those reserved for scheduled caste and scheduled tribes. Okay, so everything will be included, 33% of the reservation for women. Okay, so secondly, the reservation will be effective from the publication of the census conducted following the Act's commencement. Now if you look at the delimitation exercise, or even if you look at increasing or decreasing the seats for parliament, so everything will be conducted after census. So therefore in this context, the implementation of Women Reservation Act 2023 will take into effect, or it will become effective after the publication of census that is conducted following the Act's recommendations or Act's commencement. Okay, so therefore, and it endures for 15-year period with potential extension determined by the parliamentary action. So the 33% of the reservation will be provided for 15 years, and if it is envisioned, the parliamentary action envisions the same, it will be further extended. The rotation of seats allocated for women will be governed by parliamentary legislation after each delimitation process. Now if you look at the data of women representation, so when you are answering questions, you must present some data. Okay, so data makes your arguments more and more legitimate and authentic. So in this context, currently just around 15% of the total numbers of 17th Lok Sabha are women. So as I have already told you, 14.5% to 15% of the total member of the parliament, both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, are women. So you can imagine the quantum of representation women have in these houses. Now after that, when you look at the state legislature, women have represented, or women constitute just 9% of the total members at the state legislature level. So because of such a low level of representation, because of patriarchy and male dominance, it is necessary that women participation in politics is very important. So we are looking for creation of an egalitarian and gender equal society. So gender equality is also one of the sustainable development goals that is envisioned by the United Nations. So in this context, 33% of reservation is a good step. Now when you answer these questions, you just mention such data about women representation in Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, and women representation at the state assembly levels. Now, the legislative progression of Women's Reservation Bill. So what exactly is the timeline of Women's Reservation Bill? So this is what we need to understand. So this is what is crux. Okay, so the reservation that is being provided for women now through 106th Constitutional Amendment Act has gone through a long process. So firstly, the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, that was signed in 1979. Okay, so the overall objective or the mandate of this convention: eradication of gender-based discrimination in political as well as the public space, with India being a signatory. So as I have already told you that India has signed the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women 1979. So please remember this convention, and India is a signatory to this convention. So what is the overall objective of this convention? Eradication of gender-based discrimination in political and public spheres. Okay, now if you look at the data of women representation, you can clearly see the representation or biasness against women. So therefore, in this context, we are focusing on eradication of gender-based discrimination in political and public spheres in line with the Convention on Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. Okay, so the constitutional amendments are particularly aimed at reserving seats for women in parliament and state legislative assembly were actually proposed. So as I have told you, it is a long process. So therefore, various constitutional amendments were proposed earlier also, for example in 1996, 1998, 1999 and 2008. So different constitutional amendments were proposed in either Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha, but different reasons they were not passed. So because of that reason, the 33% of the reservation was not given to the women. So the first three bills, so first bill in 1996, 1998 and 1999 were actually expired when their respective Lok Sabha were dissolved. Okay, so the main reason why they were not passed is because in these 3 years the Lok Sabha was expired. Since Lok Sabha was expired, the bill cannot become a constitutional amendment. So however, in 2008 also there was an attempt to provide 33% of the reservation for women, and in 2008 bill was introduced in and approved by the Rajya Sabha. Okay, so however, it was lapsed when 15th Lok Sabha was dissolved. This bill that was introduced in 2008 was actually dissolved. Okay, now we are actually in the 17th Lok Sabha. Now however, in present case it will require that adherence to the triple test laid down by the Supreme Court. So you may also get a question, what exactly is the triple test? You need to understand the triple test. Now the triple test has been actually recommended by the Supreme Court. In triple test, what generally happens, there will be a commission. So state government first understand the quantum of the backwardness of women, so representation, lack of representation of women in the political institutions firstly. Secondly, the state government will appoint a commission to make recommendations for the quantum of reservation for women. So appropriately, after considering the recommendations of the commission, the state government will reserve a such quantum of seats for the women representation. However, triple test also mandates that this reservation should not exceed 50% of the overall reservation. Okay, so this involves 3-step process, and because of this reason it is known as a triple test. Okay, so this triple test is laid down by the Supreme Court. So please also carefully understand what exactly is the triple test. Now in triple test, what happens? First, in order to understand the backwardness or lack of women representation in politics or political institutions, the state government appoints a commission, and secondly, based on the recommendations of the commission, the state government will take appropriate measures to provide reservation, and third, the reservation shall not exceed 50% quantum. Now In a nutshell, if you understand the Women Reservation Act that was passed in 2023 and amended the 106th constitutional amendment, so the overall objective is providing 1/3 of the total seats in Lok Sabha and state legislative assemblies for women. Now, if you look at the background of the bill, as I have already told you earlier, this bill was introduced in the year 1996, 1998, 2009, 2010, 2014, and even 2008 as well, right? So there were number of committees which were appointed, and those committees were also recommended providing 33% of the reservation for women. So the committees include Committee on the Status of Women in India. So this was established in 1971, and Committee under Margaret Alva, 1987, Geeta Mukherjee Committee, 1996, and Committee on the Status of Women, 2013. So these committees were also recommended providing 33% of the reservation for women in state legislature as well as in parliament. So however, we need to understand certain key features of this providing reservation for women Act 2023. So there were number of articles which were inserted as part of this constitutional amendment. So the first article, 330A, so it provides reservation for women in Lok Sabha, and 332A, reservation for women in state legislative assemblies. So please understand, these are new articles which are inserted as part of this constitutional amendment, similar to how article 279A was introduced as part of the GST. So these articles were also introduced. Article 330A is about reservation for women in Lok Sabha. Article 332A, reservation for women in legislative assemblies. Article 239AA, reservation for women in National Capital Territory of Delhi. And similarly, Article 334A, so it provides reservations to become effective after delimitation is undertaken, a census is conducted. So these four articles are very, very important. Just keep these articles in mind. So however, when we talk about the time period, so we cannot provide reservation for an indefinite period. However, they can be extended. Okay, so the overall time period for providing reservation is around 15 years, and it can be further extended based on the overall progress of the woman in the politics. Now after that, the rotation of seats reserved. Okay, so after each delimitation, we all know about the delimitation exercise. So with the changing population, the delimitation exercise is also carried out once in a 10 years. Okay, so the rotation of seats which are actually reserved for women will be changed after each delimitation. So however, there are certain arguments in favor of providing reservation for women, and also there are few arguments against providing reservation for women, providing 33% of the reservation for women in legislative assembly and the parliament. So first argument in favor of this reservation is it is the first step towards gender equality. Now gender equality is very important. We need to create a gender equal and egalitarian society, and sustainable developmental goals, goal number 5, has also envisioned gender equality. So we have been facing a lot of challenges because of patriarchy, and patriarchy has a multiplier effect on the society, particularly on the woman empowerment. So therefore it is actually a vital step in gender equality. Now after that, we need to talk about the broader range of perspectives to the decision making process. Now it actually provides a broader range of perspectives when we are taking decisions. So multiple stakeholders are being involved when we are taking decisions. So it also helps in eliminate discrimination against women in political or public life. Now if you look at the public life or the political life, there's a lot of discrimination against women. Now women entry into the politics generally not encouraged. So therefore in this context, there will be change in the mindset. There's a change in social attitudes of the people towards the woman. So the other major argument for women in politics is that if you look at the women lead constituencies, they have been making a rapid progress compared to their male counterparts. So therefore in this context, so there will be a change in the society, and there will be change in the mindsets of the people towards women leaders. However, there are certain arguments against women reservation also. Firstly, delimitation was based on 2021 census. It is yet to be conducted, is mandatory. Okay, so the 2021 census delimitation is mandatory. Secondly, no woman reservation in Rajya Sabha, state legislative councils. So the reservation is only provided for state legislative assemblies and Lok Sabha, but it is not extended to Rajya Sabha or legislative councils. So what steps that have to be taken in this regard? So there are multiple steps that have to be taken. So firstly, reservation for women within the political parties. Okay, so for example, the intra-party democracy, that has to be more and more emphasized. Now if you look at the political parties, they lack the intra-party democracy, and that's where the women representation was neglected by these political parties. So therefore the reservation for women within the political parties should be emphasized. And after that, the independent political decision making by women, overcoming the sarpanchpatism. Now if you look at the local level governance or the local level panchayats, even though 33% of the reservation is being provided for women, sarpanchpati system or pati panchayat system is one of the major problems that women have been facing. So therefore in this context, women's independent political decision making should be encouraged. Women political participation needs to be further encouraged. Okay, so in a nutshell, this is how the overall objective of providing reservation, the 33% of the reservation for women. Now if you just try and understand these broader perspectives of women reservation, so that you can answer these questions in an appropriate manner. Now if you look at the status of women's reservation in panchayats and local bodies, so we should also discuss about this. Now what is the status? Now we all know that 33% of the reservation has been provided for the women at local bodies. Now what exactly is that the status? So 73rd and 74th constitutional amendments were passed, and these amendments have provided or reserved 1/3 of the seats for women at Panchayat Raj institutions and urban local bodies. Okay, so this is particularly after the recommendations of National Perspective Plan for Women 1988-2000. Okay, so there was a national perspective plan for women in the years 1988 and 2000. So based on the recommendations of this national perspective plan, 73rd and 74th constitutional amendment acts have provided 1/3 of the seats for women at Panchayati Raj institutions and urban local bodies. Now panchayat being a local government, so we all know that, so panchayats as formed under Article 14, they are known for local government. So panchayats are also a state subject and part of the state list and the 7th schedule of the constitution. Okay, so these are some of the facts related to the panchayats. So however, if you look at the reservation, Article 243D provides reservation, so 33% of the reservation for women in local bodies. So this this article of the constitution ensures participation of women in Panchayati Raj institutions by mandating at least 1/3 of the reservation for women out of total number of seats to be filled by direct election, which is conducted at the local level or at the panchayat level. So okay, so these seats are not just reserved for the members at the panchayats, members of the panchayat, but also the offices of chairpersons in these panchayats. Okay, so this is the overall status of reservation, women's reservation in panchayats and urban local bodies. Okay, so overall, if you talk about the women reservation, the 33% of the reservation, reserving 33% of the seats for women in legislative assemblies and in Lok Sabha, it is a much awaited measure by the government, because we are looking to create a gender equal India. So we have been taking several steps to create a gender equal or egalitarian society, and this can be considered as a first step. Okay, so and apart from that, we need to promote the intra-party democracy among the political parties, so that those political parties can give more and more seats to women representatives. So there will be no need for providing 33% reservation, or more than 33% of the women can actually take part in the political process and they can become leaders. So this is how you can justify the 33% of the reservation. So when you have asked this question, you ultimately you have to ultimately give your opinion that yes, 33% of reservation for women is a much required or much needed step. Okay, so don't criticize this move. Okay, so that's all for today, and even in the next session we will be discussing about the climate change and its impact on the food security or the food systems. Now climate change is one of the most dynamic aspect, and we'll be discussing about that aspect as well. Thank you.